Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship New Horizon and watched the alien world grow larger on the main screen. His hands shook a little as he fixed his uniform. Today would change everything for humanity. They were about to meet the Zephyrian Empire for the first time. "Captain, we're getting a message from their ships," said Lieutenant Amy Rogers from her station. "They want us to follow them to the Crystal Palace." Jake nodded. "Do what they say. We don't want to make them angry." The Zephyrian Empire was huge. They ruled over many star systems and had powerful weapons. Earth needed their friendship, not their anger. That's why Jake and his team were here. They had to make a good deal with these aliens. The Crystal Palace was not on a planet. It was a giant space station that sparkled like a diamond in the dark of space. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful. The palace was bigger than any city on Earth. "Look at that," whispered Dr. Helen Rodriguez, the mission's science officer. "How did they build something so big?" "Very carefully," said Ambassador Paul Stevens. He was supposed to be the main speaker for Earth, but Jake was in charge of the mission. "Remember, everyone, be polite. Don't touch anything. And whatever you do, don't show too much emotion. They think feelings are bad." Jake knew the rules. The Zephyrians were very different from humans. They had blue skin that looked like crystal. They were tall and thin. Most important, they didn't feel emotions like humans did. They thought emotions made people weak and stupid. The New Horizon docked with the Crystal Palace. Jake put on his best suit and walked with his team through the alien corridors. Everything was made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light. The walls hummed with strange music. "That's how they talk to each other," explained Dr. Rodriguez quietly. "They use their minds to send thoughts and sounds." "Weird," said Lieutenant Ryan Clark, the ship's engineer. They entered a huge room with a ceiling so high Jake couldn't see the top. Hundreds of Zephyrians stood in neat rows. They all looked at the humans with silver eyes that showed no feeling at all. At the far end of the room, on a throne made of pure crystal, sat the Zephyrian queen. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Queen Lyrithas was the most beautiful being he had ever seen. She was 7 feet tall with skin like blue glass. Her silver hair moved like water even though there was no wind. Her eyes were the color of starlight. But what surprised Jake most was what he saw when he looked into those silver eyes. For just a moment he saw something the Zephyrians were not supposed to have. He saw loneliness. "Humans," the queen said. Her voice was like music and ice at the same time. "You have come far to speak with us. What do you offer the Zephyrian Empire?" Ambassador Stevens stepped forward with a small box. Inside were examples of human art, music, and technology. It was their way of showing friendship. "Your Majesty," Stevens said, "we bring gifts from Earth. We hope to trade with your great empire and learn from each other." The queen looked at the gifts without interest. "These things are adequate. But what makes humans special? Why should we care about your small world?" Stevens started to give a speech about human achievements, but Jake wasn't listening. He was looking at the queen's face. Every few seconds her perfect mask would slip. He would see a flash of something real, something sad. The other Zephyrians around the room stood like statues. They showed no emotion at all. But their queen, she was different. Jake could feel it. "Your Majesty," Stevens was saying, "humans are good at solving problems and working together. We believe we can help your empire grow stronger." "Interesting," the queen said, but her voice was flat. "We will consider your offer." Jake knew the meeting was almost over. Soon they would leave and probably never see the queen again. But he couldn't stop looking at her. Behind all that cold beauty, he saw someone who was alone. Someone who wanted to feel something real. Before he knew what he was doing, Jake stepped forward. Stevens tried to grab his arm, but Jake was already walking toward the throne. "Captain Morrison," Stevens hissed. "What are you doing?" The queen's silver eyes fixed on Jake. The whole room went quiet. Even the humming stopped. Jake stopped in front of the throne. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. He looked up at the beautiful alien queen and did something no human had ever done before. He spoke from his heart. Your Majesty, Jake said, his voice shaking. I have watched you during this meeting. I see something in your eyes that your people might not understand. You are lonely. You want to feel something real. I know because I feel the same way. The Queen leaned forward slightly. For the first time, her face showed real interest. I came here to make a deal for my people, Jake continued. But now I want something else. Your Majesty, I desire to marry you. The words came out in a whisper, but in the silent room, everyone heard them. The Zephyrians around the room made strange sounds of shock. Some of them took steps backward. Queen Lyrathess stared at Jake for a long time. Her silver eyes seemed to look right into his soul. Jake could hear his heart beating in his ears. Then something amazing happened. The Queen's cold mask cracked. For just a moment, Jake saw the real person underneath. Someone who had been waiting her whole life for someone to see her as more than just a ruler. Queen Lyrathess stood up from her throne. She was much taller than Jake, but somehow that didn't matter. She looked down at him with eyes that were no longer cold. Human Jake Morrison, she said slowly. You offer something no one has ever offered a Zephyrian queen. You offer your heart. The room was so quiet Jake could hear the crystal walls humming. I accept, the Queen said. The words hit the room like a bomb. Zephyrians began making loud humming sounds. Some of them looked angry, others looked confused. Jake's own team stood, with their mouths open. But Jake only had eyes for the Queen. She was looking at him like she was seeing sunlight for the first time. Your Majesty, Jake said. I promise I will try to make you happy. You already have, Queen Lyrathess said, and for the first time in her life she smiled. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. A human had asked the Zephyrian Queen to marry him. Even worse, she had said yes. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Grant sat in her office and stared at the message from the New Horizon. She read it 3 times before she believed it. He did what? She asked the empty room. Admiral Grant called an emergency meeting. All the top military leaders came to her office. They all looked worried. Gentlemen, Admiral Grant said, we have a problem. Captain Morrison has either saved humanity or doomed us all. General Bob Martinez shook his head. How could he do this without permission? This wasn't part of the plan. Maybe it was brilliant, said Colonel Kate Williams. If the Queen marries a human, she'll want to protect Earth. Or maybe she's using him, General Martinez replied. These aliens don't feel emotions like we do. This could be a trap. Admiral Grant looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Jake Morrison was about to marry the most powerful alien in the galaxy. She just hoped he knew what he was doing. Back on the Crystal Palace, Jake was learning that being engaged to an alien queen was very complicated. Everything he did mattered to millions of people. You must wear these clothes, said Lord Commander Veltar, the leader of the Queen's Council. He handed Jake a set of crystal armor that was very heavy. And you must learn our customs. A queen's husband cannot act like a common human. Jake put on the armor, but it felt wrong. The Zephyrians wanted him to act like them. Cold, emotionless. But that wasn't who he was. I want to stay human, Jake told Ambassador Stevens privately. If the Queen wanted a Zephyrian husband, she would have married one of them. Stevens looked worried. Jake, you're playing a dangerous game. These people could kill us all if you make them angry. But Jake wasn't alone. Princess Kira Lynn, the Queen's younger sister, had become his friend. She was different from the other Zephyrians. She asked lots of questions about human feelings. What is this thing you call love? Kira Lynn asked Jake one day. They were walking through the palace gardens, which were full of crystal trees that sang in the wind. Love is when you care about someone more than yourself, Jake explained. When their happiness makes you happy, when you would do anything to protect them. Kira Lynn stopped walking. That sounds dangerous. What if they hurt you? Sometimes love does hurt, Jake said, but it's worth it. Love makes life worth living. Kira Lynn was quiet for a long time. I think I want to understand this love, she said finally. That's when Lieutenant Ryan Clark walked into the garden. He was carrying a toolbox and looked frustrated. "Sorry to bother you," Ryan said to Jake. "I'm trying to fix the communication system, but I can't figure out how this crystal technology works." Kira stepped forward. "I can help you," she said. "I know our technology very well." Jake watched as Kira and Ryan worked together. Ryan treated the princess like a normal person, not like royalty. He asked her opinion and listened to her ideas. Kira seemed surprised but happy about this. "On Earth," Ryan told her, "we believe everyone is equal. It doesn't matter if you're a princess or a farmer. Everyone deserves respect." Kira stared at him. "Even women?" "Especially women," Ryan said with a smile. "Some of our best leaders are women." Jake could see something changing in Kira silver eyes. Something new was waking up inside her. Meanwhile, Queen Lyrithus was having her own problems. The Queen's Council was not happy about her engagement to Jake. "Your Majesty," said High Priest Zarthok, "this human is changing you. You are showing emotions. This is dangerous for our people." "What emotions?" the Queen asked. "Yesterday you pardoned 3 prisoners because you felt sorry for them," Veltar said. "Last week you reduced taxes because you wanted to help poor families. These are not logical decisions." The Queen thought about this. It was true. Since meeting Jake, she had been feeling strange new things. When she saw sad people, she wanted to help them. When she saw beautiful things, they made her happy. When she thought about Jake, her heart beat faster. "Are these feelings bad?" she asked. "Yes," said Zarthok. "Emotions destroyed our people once before. That's why we learned to live without them." But the Queen wasn't sure. These new feelings didn't feel bad. They felt real. For the first time in her life, she felt alive. Dr. Helen Rodriguez was working in her lab when she made an amazing discovery. She had been studying Zephyrian blood samples and found something strange. "Paul, you need to see this," she called to Ambassador Stevens. Stevens looked at her data on the computer screen. "What am I looking at?" "Zephyrian DNA," Helen said. "Look at this section here. These are the genes that control emotions in humans. Zephyrians have the same genes, but they're turned off." "Turned off how?" "By artificial means," Helen said excitedly. "This isn't natural evolution. Someone or something changed their DNA on purpose. The Zephyrians were made to not feel emotions." Stephen stared at the screen. "That's impossible. Who could do that?" "I don't know," Helen said. "But I think I can turn the emotions back on." This news was dangerous. If the Zephyrian leaders found out that their emotionless state was artificial, they might get very angry. But Helen wasn't the only one making discoveries. A young Zephyrian scientist named Mordain was working with her. When Helen showed him the DNA results, something amazing happened. Mordain stared at the data for a long time. His silver eyes grew wide. This means we were like you once. We could feel things." "Yes," Helen said gently. Mordain touched the screen with a shaking hand. "All this time we thought emotions were a weakness. But we had them too. We were human-like." And then Mordain felt his first emotion in his entire life. Wonder. Pure, beautiful wonder at the discovery of his people's hidden past. He began to cry, though he didn't understand what crying was. "What's happening to me?" he asked Helen. "You're feeling," she said with a smile. "You're remembering how to be alive." But not everyone was happy about these changes. Lord Commander Veltar was watching everything carefully. He saw the Queen's new emotions. He saw Princess Kira spending time with the human Ryan. He saw other Zephyrians starting to ask questions about feelings. "This human infection is spreading," he told High Priest Zarthok. "Soon our whole empire will be weak and emotional like them." "What do you suggest?" Zarthok asked. Veltar's silver eyes were cold as ice. "We remove the infection. We kill the humans and cure our queen before it's too late. And if the queen refuses to be cured..." Veltar was quiet for a moment. "Then we find a new queen." The plan was set. Veltar would gather loyal Zephyrians who wanted to keep the old ways. They would stop this emotional plague before it destroyed their perfect society. But they didn't know that change had already begun. All across the Empire, young Zephyrians were starting to feel things they had never felt before. The human example was spreading like seeds on the wind. Jake Morrison had no idea that his simple words of love had started a revolution. He only knew that when he looked at Queen Lyrithus, he saw someone learning to be happy for the first time, and that was worth any danger that lay ahead. Queen Lyrithus stood in her private chambers and looked at herself in the crystal mirror. She looked the same as always, but she felt completely different. Her silver eyes showed things they had never shown before: joy, fear, love. "I am changing," she said to Jake, who was sitting on the crystal bed. "My people think I am becoming sick." Jake stood up and walked to her. "You're not sick, you're becoming real." The Queen turned to face him. "What if they're right? What if emotions make me a bad ruler?" "Look what you've done since we met," Jake said. "You freed prisoners who didn't deserve to be locked up. You sent food to hungry planets. You stopped 3 wars without fighting. How is that bad?" Lyrathis thought about this. Since she started feeling emotions, she had been making different choices. Instead of ruling with fear, she ruled with kindness. Her people seemed happier, but the old leaders were angry. "Lord Commander Veltar says I am weak now," she said. "Veltar is afraid," Jake replied. "He's afraid that if your people learn to feel, they won't need him to tell them what to think." That night something happened that changed everything. Princess Kirillin came to see her sister, but she wasn't alone. Lieutenant Ryan Clark was with her. "Sister," Kirillin said, "I need to tell you something important." Queen Lyrithus could see that her sister looked different. Her silver eyes were bright with something new. "What is it?" the Queen asked. "I think I love this human," Kirillin said, taking Ryan's hand. "And I think he loves me too." Ryan nodded. "Your Majesty, I know. This might sound crazy, but Kirillin is the most amazing person I've ever met. She's smart, brave, and kind. I want to marry her." The Queen stared at them. Her sister, who had never shown emotion in her life, was glowing with happiness. "How do you feel, Kirillin?" the Queen asked. "Like I'm flying," her sister replied. "Like the whole universe is singing. Like I finally understand what life is supposed to be like." Queen Lyrithus smiled. "Then you have my blessing." But their happiness was interrupted by a loud alarm. Lord Commander Veltar's voice came over the palace speakers. "Attention all, citizens. The royal family has been infected by human emotions. This is a medical emergency. All humans must be arrested immediately for the safety of our empire." Jake grabbed the Queen's hand. "We have to go. Now." They ran through the crystal corridors as Veltar's soldiers marched through the palace. But something strange was happening. Many young Zephyrians were standing in the soldiers' way. "We will not let you hurt the humans," said a young guard named Torvel. "They have shown us how to feel alive." "You are infected too," the soldier captain said. "Stand aside or we will arrest you." "No," said Torvel. And for the first time in his life he felt anger. It gave him strength. "I will not stand aside." More young Zephyrians joined him. Soon the corridor was full of people who refused to let the soldiers pass. Dr. Helen Rodriguez was in her lab when the soldiers came for her, but Mordain, the Zephyrian scientist, stood between them and her. "Dr. Rodriguez is helping us understand our true nature," Mordain said. "She must not be harmed." "You are sick, Mordain," the soldier said. "Come with us for treatment." "I am not sick," Mordain replied. "For the first time in my life I am healthy." Helen watched in amazement as more Zephyrian scientists joined Mordain. They had been secretly experimenting with her emotion restoration process. Now they were feeling wonder, curiosity, and determination. "Captain," Helen said to the soldier, "your own people are telling you they want to feel emotions. Maybe you should listen to them." The soldier looked confused. He had never seen Zephyrians act like this before. In the throne room, Lord Commander Veltar was declaring himself the new ruler of the Empire. Queen Lyrathess is no longer fit to lead, he announced to the gathered nobles. She has been poisoned by human emotions. I will cure our people and make our empire strong again. But High Priest Zarthuk looked worried. Commander, many of our young people are supporting the Queen. They say they want these emotions. Then we will cure them all, Veltar said coldly, even if we have to force them. Meanwhile, Jake and the Queen had reached the palace's main communications center. Princess Kirillin and Ryan were already there, along with Ambassador Stevens and several other humans. We need to tell the whole Empire what's really happening, Jake said. Queen Lyrathess nodded. She activated the Empire-wide communication system. Every Zephyrian in the galaxy would hear her words. My people, the Queen began. You have been told that emotions are a sickness. You have been told that I am weak because I feel love, compassion, and joy. But I have discovered something amazing. She looked at Jake, drawing strength from his presence. Emotions are not our weakness, they are our strength. For too long we have lived like machines, cold and empty. But we were not always this way. Long ago, our people felt emotions just like humans do. We chose to give them up, but now we can choose to take them back. Across the Empire, millions of Zephyrians listened to their Queen's words. I do not order you to feel, the Queen continued. I offer you a choice. You can stay as you are, safe and emotionless, or you can join me in discovering what it truly means to be alive. Then Queen Lyrathess did something that had never been done before. She opened her mind completely and broadcast her emotions across the entire Zephyrian telepathic network. Every Zephyrian in the galaxy suddenly felt what she felt. Love for Jake, joy in their engagement, hope for the future, sadness for all the years of emptiness. Wonder at the beauty of feeling alive. The effect was like lightning. On 1,000 worlds, young Zephyrians gasped as they experienced emotions for the first time. Parents watched in amazement as their children began to laugh and cry and feel wonder. But the older Zephyrians were terrified. They remembered the old stories about what emotions had done to their people long ago. Wars fought over love and jealousy. Families destroyed by anger and hate. Stop this, Veltar screamed over the communication system. You are destroying our civilization. No, Queen Lyrathess replied. I am saving it. But Veltar was not finished. He had prepared for this moment. He activated a secret weapon that the royal family didn't know about, a device that could block telepathic signals and shut down emotions by force. Across the Empire, the awakened Zephyrians suddenly felt their new emotions being ripped away. The joy and love and wonder disappeared, leaving them empty again. You, see? Veltar announced. Emotions are a disease and we have the cure. All infected Zephyrians will be treated. The humans will be destroyed. Our empire will be pure again. But he had made one mistake. The device that blocked emotions also blocked the loyalty programming that kept Zephyrian soldiers obedient. For the first time in centuries, they could think for themselves. Many of them looked around and asked themselves, why are we fighting our own people? Why are we trying to destroy something that makes them happy? The empire split in two. Those who wanted emotions joined Queen Lyrathess and called themselves the Awakened. Those who feared emotions followed Veltar and called themselves the Pure. Civil war was coming, and Jake Morrison, a simple human captain, was standing at the center of it all. What have we done? Jake asked the Queen. We have given them a choice, she replied. Now we must fight for their right to make it. The battle for the future of the Zephyrian Empire was about to begin, and the fate of both species hung in the balance. The first battle began at dawn. Lord Commander Veltar's pure fleet attacked the Crystal Palace with weapons that could destroy planets, but Queen Lyrathess was ready for them. All ships, defend the palace, she ordered from the command center. Her voice was calm, but Jake could see the fear in her silver eyes. The space around the Crystal Palace filled with laser fire and exploding ships. The awakened Zephyrians fought with everything they had, but Veltar's forces were stronger. We need help, Princess Kirillin said. She was commanding the defense fleet from the bridge of her ship, the Silver Star. Lieutenant Ryan Clark worked beside her, showing her human military tactics. Help is coming, Jake said. He had sent a message to Earth as soon as the fighting started. Admiral Lisa Grant received Jake's message while she was eating breakfast. She read it twice before she believed it. The Zephyrian Empire is having a civil war, she told her staff. Captain Morrison is asking for our help. Should we get involved? Asked General Martinez. This isn't our fight. It is our fight, Admiral, Grant replied. If Veltar wins, he'll kill all the humans in Zephyrian space. Then he'll probably attack Earth. Admiral Grant made the biggest decision of her career. Send the entire Earth defense fleet to help the Queen. We're going to war. The human fleet was much smaller than the Zephyrian forces, but they had something the pure fleet didn't have. They knew how to work together. They knew how to fight for something they believed in. Captain Tony Phillips commanded the Earth battleship, Defender. When he saw the Crystal Palace under attack, he didn't hesitate. All ships, follow me, he radioed to the human fleet. We're going to save our people. The human ships flew straight into the battle. They were outnumbered 10-1, but they fought like heroes. Captain Phillips worked with Princess Kirillin to coordinate their attacks. Your ships are so fast, Kirillin said over the radio. That's because we fight with our hearts, Phillips replied. When you care about something, you find strength you didn't know you had. But the real battle was happening inside the Crystal Palace. Veltar had sent his best soldiers to capture Queen Lyrithus and Jake. Surrender now, the soldier captain told them. Commander Veltar promises you will not be harmed if you give up. We will never surrender, the Queen said, but Jake could see they were trapped. There were too many soldiers. That's when something amazing happened. Dr. Helen Rodriguez and Mordain had been working in secret. They had found a way to restore emotions to any Zephyrian who wanted them. Now, Helen whispered. Mordain activated their device. It sent a signal to every Zephyrian in the palace, offering them a choice. They could stay emotionless or they could feel again. Many of the young palace guards chose to feel. Suddenly, they remembered what they were fighting for. They were fighting for their right to love, to feel joy, to be truly alive. The guards turned on Veltar's soldiers. We will not let you hurt our queen, they said. The battle raged through the crystal corridors, but now Jake and his friends had help from people who understood what freedom meant. Meanwhile, in space, the war was getting worse. Admiral Grant arrived with the Earth fleet just as the awakened ships were about to be destroyed. This is Admiral Grant of the Earth Defense Force, she announced. We stand with Queen Lyrithus and the right of all people to choose their own destiny. The human ships fought alongside the awakened Zephyrians. They showed them new ways to fight. They taught them that courage comes from caring about others. But Veltar had a secret weapon. He had built a massive ship called the Purifier. It was bigger than anything humans had ever seen. It could destroy the Crystal Palace with one shot. Surrender now, Veltar demanded, or I will destroy everything you care about. Jake was in the palace command center when he heard this. He looked at Queen Lyrithus and saw her making a terrible choice. She was thinking about giving up to save her people. No, Jake said. There has to be another way. What other way? The Queen asked. If I don't surrender, he will kill everyone. That's when Dr. Rodriguez called them on the radio. Your Majesty, I have an idea, but it's very dangerous. Tell me, the Queen said. I can modify the emotion restoration device to work on a massive scale. I can offer the choice to every Zephyrian in Veltar's fleet at the same time. But if I do this, the energy feedback might kill me. Jake grabbed the radio. Helen, you can't do this. Yes, I can, Helen replied. This is what humans do. We sacrifice for others. We fight for what's right even when it's dangerous. Before anyone could stop her, Helen activated the device. The signal spread across space, reaching every ship in Veltar's fleet. For the first time in their lives, thousands of pure fleet soldiers had a choice. They could feel emotions if they wanted to. Many of them chose to feel. And the first emotion they felt was doubt. Why were they fighting their own people? Why were they trying to destroy something beautiful? I don't want to fight anymore, said one ship captain. I want to understand what love is. These humans aren't our enemies, said another. They're trying to help us. Ship after ship in the Pure Fleet stopped fighting. Their crews were experiencing wonder, curiosity, and hope for the first time. But the energy feedback from the device was too much for Dr. Rodriguez. She collapsed in her lab, her life fading away. "Helen!" Jake shouted over the radio. "It's okay," she whispered. "I got to see something amazing. I got to see a whole species learn to feel love." Helen Rodriguez died with a smile on her face, knowing she had helped free an entire empire. Veltar watched his fleet abandon him. He was alone now, just him and a few fanatics who still believed emotions were evil. "You have destroyed everything," he told Queen Lyrathess over the radio. "Our perfect civilization is ruined." "Our civilization was never perfect," the Queen replied. "It was empty. Now it can be truly great." Veltar made one last desperate attack. He aimed the Purifier's main weapon at the Crystal Palace. But before he could fire, something unexpected happened. His own daughter, Commander Zaravel, stopped him. "Father, please," she said. She had been on the bridge of the Purifier, but the emotion device had reached her too. For the first time, she could feel love for her father. And she could see how wrong he was. "You are sick, daughter," Veltar said. "No, father. I am awake." Zaravel looked at him with eyes full of tears. "All my life you taught me that feelings were weakness. But these feelings, they make me want to be better. They make me want to help people instead of hurting them." Veltar stared at his daughter. In her face he saw something he had forgotten existed. He saw love, pure, unconditional love. For just a moment, his own emotional barriers cracked. He remembered holding Zaravel as a baby. He remembered being proud when she learned to walk. He remembered loving her before he learned to turn off his heart. But the moment passed. Veltar was too afraid to feel. "I will not let this infection spread," he said. He pushed his daughter aside and reached for the weapon controls, but Zaravel couldn't let him destroy so many innocent people. With tears streaming down her crystal skin, she stopped her father, the only way she could. The Purifier exploded in a burst of light that could be seen across the galaxy. The war was over. The Pure Fleet surrendered. But the cost had been terrible. Too many good people had died for the right to feel. Jake held Queen Lyrathess as they watched the wreckage of the Purifier drift through space. They had won, but victory felt hollow. "Was it worth it?" the Queen asked. Jake thought about Dr. Rodriguez, who had died to free the Zephyrian people. He thought about Zaravel, who had sacrificed everything to stop her father. He thought about all the soldiers on both sides who had died fighting for what they believed in. "Ask me in 100 years," he said. "When Zephyrian children grow up knowing they can choose to love. When your people spread across the galaxy teaching others that emotions are a gift, not a curse. Then we'll know if it was worth it." The Queen nodded. She understood. They had not just won a war. They had won the right to feel, the right to love, the right to be truly alive. Now came the hardest part of all. They had to build a new world from the ashes of the old one. 6 months after the war ended, Jake Morrison stood in front of a mirror and tried to fix his tie. Today was his wedding day, and he was more nervous than he had been during any battle. "You look fine," said Ambassador Stevens, who was going to be Jake's best man. "Stop worrying." "I'm not worried about how I look," Jake replied. "I'm worried about whether I can be a good husband to an alien queen." Stevens smiled. "Jake, you've already changed her entire civilization. I think you can handle being married." The wedding was taking place on New Harmony Station, a space station built by humans and Zephyrians working together. It was a symbol of their new friendship. Representatives from dozens of alien species had come to watch the ceremony. "They're all here to see if emotions really work," Princess Kiralyn told her sister as they prepared for the ceremony. Kiralyn was getting married too. She and Lieutenant Ryan Clark had decided to have a double wedding. "Are you nervous?" "Queen, no," Lyrathess asked her sister. "Terrified," Kiralyn replied, "but also excited. Ryan says that's normal for humans before they get married." The Queen looked at herself in the mirror. She was wearing a dress that combined human and Zephyrian styles. It was beautiful, but more importantly, it felt right. "Sister," Kirillin said, "do you ever regret choosing to feel emotions?" Lyra Thess thought about this. The past 6 months had been difficult. Learning to feel meant learning to hurt. She had cried for the people who died in the war. She had felt angry at the destruction. She had experienced sadness, fear, and doubt. But she had also felt joy, love, and hope. "Never," she said. "Even the painful emotions are better than feeling nothing at all." The ceremony began in the station's main hall. It was decorated with crystal flowers from the Zephyrian homeworld and roses from Earth. Human and Zephyrian music played together, creating something entirely new and beautiful. Jake walked down the aisle with his heart pounding. When he saw Queen Lyra Thess, he forgot to be nervous. She was the most beautiful sight in the universe. They had written their own vows, mixing human and Zephyrian traditions. "Jake Morrison," the Queen said, "you taught me that strength comes not from having no feelings, but from having the courage to feel everything. You showed me that love is not weakness, but the greatest power in the universe." Jake took her hands in his. "Lyra Thess, you showed me that love can change the world, that one person's courage to feel can inspire millions of others. You are my queen, my partner, and my heart." When they kissed, the whole station erupted in cheers. Humans clapped and shouted. Zephyrians hummed in harmony. Other alien species made their own sounds of celebration. The reception was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. Humans danced with Zephyrians. Children from both species played together. Old enemies shared food and stories. Admiral Grant gave a speech about friendship between species. 6 months ago, we thought the Zephyrians were cold and emotionless, she said. Now we know they were just sleeping. Today they have awakened. But the real celebration was happening throughout the galaxy. The wedding was being broadcast to every world in the Empire. Young Zephyrians watched in wonder as their queen danced with her human husband. On the old Zephyrian homeworld, children were laughing for the first time in centuries. Their parents, who had learned to feel emotions after the war, watched with tears of joy. "Is this what happiness looks like?" asked a young Zephyrian named Koltar. "Yes," his mother replied. "This is what we were missing all those years." But not everyone was celebrating. On some worlds, older Zephyrians still refused to feel emotions. They watched the wedding with fear and anger. "This will destroy us," said Elder Morthak. "Mark my words, emotions will bring chaos and war." But his own grandson, who had chosen to feel, looked at him with pity. "Grandfather, you're already destroying yourself. You just can't see it." At the wedding reception, Jake and Lyra Thess were talking with the other alien ambassadors who had come to the ceremony. "Your story has spread throughout the galaxy," said Ambassador Tilok of the Andromedan Republic. "Other species are asking questions about emotions. Some want to learn from your example." "What kind of questions?" Lyra Thess asked. "Whether feelings make people stronger or weaker. Whether love is worth the pain it sometimes brings. Whether two very different species can really live together in peace." Jake and Lyra Thess looked around the room. They saw humans and Zephyrians talking and laughing together. They saw Princess Kirillin teaching human children how to make crystal music. They saw Ryan showing Zephyrian engineers how human technology worked. "I think we have our answer," Jake said. 1 year later, Jake and Lyra Thess had their first child. The baby was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. She had human features but crystal blue skin. Her eyes were silver like her mother's but warm like her father's. They named her Hope. "She's beautiful," said Dr. Nina Foster, who had taken over Helen Rodriguez's research. "She has the best of both species." Baby Hope could do things that amazed everyone. She could communicate telepathically like a Zephyrian, but she also babbled and cried like a human baby. She seemed to understand emotions instinctively. "She's the future," Lyra Thess said as she held her daughter. "She'll grow up in a world where humans and Zephyrians are family." Jake looked out the window of their home on New Harmony Station. He could see ships from dozens of species docking at the station. The Galactic Emotional Exchange Program that he and Lyrathess had started was bringing people together from across the galaxy. "What are you thinking about?" Lyrathess asked. "That night in the throne room," Jake replied. "When I told you I wanted to marry you, I never imagined it would lead to all this." "What did you imagine?" Jake smiled. "I just wanted to make you smile. Everything else was a bonus." Lyrathess laughed, a sound that never failed to make Jake's heart sing. "Well, you succeeded. I haven't stopped smiling since." They were interrupted by Princess Kiralyn and Ryan, who now had a baby of their own. Little Marcus had Ryan's brown eyes and Kiralyn's silver hair. "Hope and Marcus are going to grow up together," Kiralyn said. "They'll be the first generation of true galactic citizens. They'll never know a world where humans and Zephyrians were enemies," Ryan added. "To them, this will all be normal." That evening, Jake and Lyrathess attended the opening ceremony of the New Harmony Academy, a school where children from all species could learn together. The first students were human and Zephyrian children who would study science, art, and philosophy side by side. "Today we begin a new chapter," Lyrathess told the crowd. "Our children will learn not just facts and skills, but how to understand and care for each other across the barriers of species and culture." In the audience, Jake saw Ambassador Stevens with his own family. Stevens had married a Zephyrian diplomat named Virilyn, and they had adopted orphans from the war. "Look how far we've come," Stevens said to Jake. "From a simple diplomatic mission to a new galactic civilization." "It's not finished yet," Jake replied. "This is just the beginning." He was right. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Other species were starting their own emotion programs. The crystalline hive had begun teaching their children to express individual thoughts. The machine empire was experimenting with artificial emotions. Some species rejected the emotional path entirely. But even they were forced to acknowledge that the human-Zephyrian alliance was becoming stronger every day. "We're changing the entire galaxy," Lyrathess said as they watched their daughter sleep in her crystal cradle. "One heart at a time." Jake nodded. "All because one queen was brave enough to accept love from a stranger, and one human was brave enough to offer it," she replied. Outside their window, the stars shone brightly. Somewhere among those stars, other species were learning to feel. Other families were being born from impossible love. Other children were growing up in a universe where emotions were celebrated instead of feared. Jake Morrison had whispered his desire to marry an alien queen. That whisper had become a shout that echoed across the galaxy. It had become a song of hope that would play for generations to come. The age of emotion had begun, and it would never end. Years later, when historians wrote about the transformation of galactic civilization, they would trace it all back to one moment. One human captain looking into the eyes of an alien queen and seeing not a ruler, but a lonely person who needed love. That moment of recognition, that simple act of human empathy, had changed everything. Jake and Lyrathess grew old together, watching their children and grandchildren spread across the galaxy. They saw the establishment of the Galactic Emotional Council, where species came together to share their feelings and resolve conflicts through understanding rather than war. They lived to see the day when emotions were considered as important as intelligence in measuring a civilization's advancement. And on quiet evenings when they sat together watching the sunset through the crystal windows of their home, they remembered that it all began with a whisper that became the foundation of a new universe where love truly conquered all.